Oh, well, hello there. Or shall I say, Happy New Year 2026, everybody. And welcome back to Venting with Us. First episode for the new year. I'm so excited to be here with you guys. I hope that everybody had an amazing New Year's. I hope that some people did their traditions. Now, I don't know if you guys know this about the traditions that some of us women do for the new year. So there is these traditions that involve garments. And I didn't do mine this year because every single year I always choose money and love, right? And it always backfires. So I said this year to myself, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do anything this year. I'm not going to wear any particular garment for, and of course the garment colors are, red and pink for love, green and yellow for wealth. Um, there's so many different ones. I can't think of all of them, but those are the ones that I usually stick to. So if you guys believe in it and you guys did it this year, I'm hoping that you guys get wealth, prosperity, and love and all the goodness in 2026 for you. I'm going to see how my year ends up. Maybe I'll kiss the right frog. Who knows? But yeah, I kind of went in a different route this year. I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to follow the rules. I'm going to do everything different this year. So we're going to see how it pans out, knock on wood. But I felt a little bit cheated this year. I have to say, as I was there, watching the New Year's ball drop, if nobody else noticed, they didn't show the ball. And you saw the countdown, but that was pretty much it. It kind of sucked. It didn't feel like the regular New Year's ball dropping at all. It was just, it was kind of weird. I don't know. Maybe this is a good thing. Maybe good things are about to come, shake things up in 2026. Who knows, What I do know is also there was reporters out on Times Square talking to people, asking people, how do you do it? How do you stay out here for 24 hours and you don't, miss the line and you got to go to the bathroom? How do you eat? And some people are wearing adult diapers. I don't know how I feel about this with someone, just sitting in their own feces for a really long time. Like I don't know how I feel about that. And this is exactly why I don't go out there and I don't want to be a part of the whole New Year's out there. And I'm good at home watching this. I don't want to. I don't want to be next to somebody that I know that probably urinated or pooped in their pamper, their adult diaper. I think I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. I am definitely not trying to be involved in any of that at all. So no, 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 no. But it was funny. The next day, I have to tell you guys the story because I'm a little upset with Pluto right now, and Pluto TV is what I'm talking about. I ended up coming across this movie called Harold and Maude, and I was like very excited because I started watching it, and for whatever reason, I was like, you know what? Let me go get a snack. Let me go get, some cheese and some crackers. Those are my usual go-tos. I put it on pause. I guess I stood a little bit too long. That shut off on me. I went back and Pluto expired the movie. I was so angry because I was halfway into this movie and it was really, really good. And now I'm not going to be able to see it. And I'm not paying $4 to watch this movie. I'll just wait until it's back on TV for free. But Pluto, you disappointed me. I'm very upset with you. But anyways, let's get into the show, guys. That was my little rant for the first few minutes. I'm so sorry about that, guys. You know me. Okay, so new year, new stories, new topics. When we left off in 2025, we were talking about Disney scandals, right? And yes, I had a couple of people reach out to me and say, "You ruined my childhood. Thank you very much." And of course, they did what I knew what they were going to do, which I said not to do, which was Google some of the stories. And I said, don't Google the stories, but they did it anyways. And now they can't unsee what they saw. So, not my fault. That's your own punishment. So, of course, rolling into 2026, why would I not finish off on the fairy tale stories? Every little girl, every little boy always dreams their own little fairy tale stories, or they reenact something out there. For the girls, it's always being the princess being saved by the prince. And, that's our, dream come true, that we're going to find out and live in this beautiful castle, And for the boys, it's always being the prince saving the girl and, living happily ever after. Of course, along with that, we am always, especially for the girls, we imagine that the Wicked Witch is either our mother or our grandparents or somebody out there, even our sisters. And so, but it's usually one or the other. So, but without fairy tales, we wouldn't be able to talk about how fairy tales came to be, right? So long before Disney had created Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, and all of the classics that we know today and grew up with, we did not know about the Brothers Grimm. Now, the Brothers Grimm has to be my all-time favorite stories because it's the actual origin of all the classics, the original stories behind the unpolished, I should say, the unpolished version of all of the Disney classics. So let's deep dive into who the Brothers Grimm were and what they were famous for. So the Brothers Grimm were two brothers, Jacob Grimm and Wilhelm Grimm, who were two German scholars, best known for collecting and publishing the classic fairy tales we all know, or at least the modern, nice version is what I like to say. We all know, and that are still popular to this day. Jacob Grimm, who was the oldest, focused on logistics, history, and folklore. He helped lay out the foundation for modern German. Oh, there we go. First messed up word in 2026, German language studies. While his brother, was the more literary minded. He edited and polished the stories to make them more readable and family friendly stories, which I don't know about that. Because when we get into it, guys, they're not so family friendly, but I'll let you guys decide on that. They did publish a collection called Grimm's Fairy Tales. They're originally titled Children's and Household Tales, starting in 1812. These stories were gathered from oral traditions across Germany and Europe. The famous tales that we all know included Cinderella, Snow White, Hansel and Gretel, Rapunzel, Little Red Riding Hood, Rumpelstiltskin. Yes, I know, not one that we always hear about. And of course, not last but not least, Sleeping Beauty. The original versions were often more darker than the modern retellings. Though they didn't invent most of the stories, they preserved folklore that have been lost. So basically, to kind of shorten up what all of that meant, because that was a little tongue twister, basically they kind of cleaned up the more modern version and, to make it seem not as dark as what the original stories were. You guys can Google all of these stories, and you can go to your local library if you would love to read about the Grimm's brothers and their book and take it out. They do have them today's. But let's deep dive into some of the classic tales that we all know today, and I will share with you behind. Now, once again, I'm going to forewarn you, if you don't want to hear about it, you can shut me off now. At this point, what do we got to lose? You already did the Disney thing, so you might as well stay with me on this ride. So let's go into the first story, which is Hansel and Gretel. The story, Hansel and Gretel, we all know. It's about two kids that get lost in the woods, right? And they come upon this house, which this old lady takes them in. She turns out to be a witch, and she tries to eat the kids. We all know the story, which is not too far from the Grimm's Brothers version. In the Grimm's Brothers version, the parents actually abandon their children, and the witch plans to eat the children, of course. Gretel ends up shoving the witch into an oven and burns her alive. And that's the original story from the Grimm's Brothers version of that, which is too bad because she was trying to eat those kids anyway. So it was going to be a do or die situation here. And I say, hey, one of us got to go, and it's going to be you. It ain't going to be me. So, hey, I'm all for it, Gretel. So the next story is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Okay, so there was no dwarves in the Grimm's Brothers version. It was just Snow White. The evil queen orders Snow White's lungs and liver to be cut out. There is no red apple or anything. The witch actually tries in this version to kill Snow White 3 times instead of the 1. And it's on the third attempt where she actually still doesn't win, but continued to attempt again, there was no apple in this. So, but Snow White's prince ends up coming in, rescuing her, and at the wedding, the queen is forced to wear red hot shoes and dance until she dies. So quite a different twist from the original story or the Disney version compared to the Brothers Grimm. We now go into Little Red Riding Hood. And those of you who are Spanish, Latina, we grew up on this story. But of course, our parents gave it to us in a different version. It was Caperucita Roja, which is Red Riding Hood in Spanish. So it was quite different. And I do remember my grandmother telling me the original version of this story, and it wasn't the beautiful Disney version that you hear about today. There's actually no woodsman that rescues her, and the wolf actually kills her and the grandmother in the story. So yeah, Caperucita Roja, or Red Riding Hood, which you like to say, yeah, she ends up dying in the actual story. So I'm so sorry, guys. What can I say? She was a little annoying little girl anyway. She had no business going out there looking for her grandmother. So I'm not going to be mean. I'm just kidding, guys. Little 2026 humor. Let's keep going on to more stories. Rapunzel. Rapunzel was one of those stories that actually was not for me. It was okay, but it wasn't a story that I was always attached to. But in the Grimm's Brothers version, Rapunzel becomes pregnant after meeting the prince. What a jerk, okay? Knock me up. And then I get banished into the wilderness because that's what happened to her. And then what ended up happening is that karma came back to the prince, and the prince is blinded after falling into some thorns. Yeah, so he became blind. You want to knock me out? Oh, well, knock me up. I should say knock me up. Knock me up. Now you can't see. You can't see. So in Rapunzel, yeah, the prince is bad in this one. So I'm all with Rapunzel in this one. Go girl. Although she didn't make this happen at all. It was just me in my mind. Let's go on to Sleeping Beauty. Sleeping Beauty, we all know, is my favorite fairy tale princess. I absolutely love Sleeping Beauty. And I was very disturbed with Sleeping Beauty, with the Grimm's brothers version, because I love the cartoon so much. To hear what the prince actually does to her, which I'm going to get into, I was like, what? You mother flower. I cannot believe you did that to my girl. But so we all know the story of Sleeping Beauty. She escapes from the witch, and the witch ends up tricking her where she pricks her finger on the spinning wheel, and she falls into a deep sleep, right? And the prince comes, he gives her a kiss, Snow White opens her eyes, and she is awakened by true love's kiss, right? Well, in the Grimm's brothers version, it is not like that at all. The prince is very naughty. He actually assaults Sleeping Beauty while she is sleeping, impregnating her. And as she's in this deep sleep, this belly is growing and growing and growing and growing. And she ends up waking up because the baby sucks the thorn out of her finger, and that's how she wakes up. So I know, very traumatizing from the original story. The princess's mother tries to eat then the baby. I know what everybody's thinking, like, what the fuck? Yeah, fucked up family, right? But the prince's mother ends up finding out that she's pregnant. She had a whole baby and whatnot, and she tries to eat the baby. But then the mother ends up dying, so there's no happily ever after with this. Crazy, right? And she gets beheaded at the end. Damn you, stepmothers. Now I have to say, by far, between Sleeping Beauty and this next fairy tale story I'm about to share with you, Cinderella, these two are probably the top that are the worst ones for me, even though I am going to share with you the worst Grimm's Brothers story. But between Sleeping Beauty and Cinderella, I think out of all of them, this is the worst. But I will let you choose which one is the worst in your mind. You can leave me a comment. So for the story of Cinderella, we all know the story of Cinderella, the Disney version of it at least. The princess's dad passes away. She is taken in by her stepmother with her 3 stepsisters, and they treat her bad. She ends up being a whole slave in the household, and she has rats as friends. And then a fairy godmother comes and takes her to the ball, and she falls in love with the prince there. She loses a shoe. The prince ends up finding her as, he goes door to door looking for her, fits the shoe on everybody, can't find it. He's like, she's out there, and once he puts the shoe on her, they fall in love, they get married, and they live happily ever after. Right? Wrong, I tell you, friends. Wrong. That is not what well, okay. That's what happens, but not 100% of what happens. Let me tell you what happens. So in the Grimm brothers version, Cinderella's mother dies and her father remarries a cruel woman. That part is completely stays the same. Cinderella actually plants a tree on her mother's grave and prays there. A magical bird is actually who helps her and not the fairy godmother that we all see in the, in the Disney version. The prince hosts not one, but 3 festivals, and it's, they're huge balls every single time. He just couldn't get it together. I don't know, whatever. To fit the glass slipper, one of the stepsisters cuts off her toes, and the other sister cuts off part of her heel. In order to get, I know. I was shocked as you guys are as I was reading this. Okay, blood ends up filling into the shoe. And then there's a bird that comes into the scene and warns the prince that the shoes are getting filled up with blood and that this is not Cinderella. Then he puts the shoe on Cinderella, and then that's how she's actually discovered. At Cinderella's wedding, the birds peck out the stepsister's eyes, blinding them forever. Woo. Karma, come and get me. That is the craziest thing, but that is the actual story of that. There are so many other versions of the Grimm brothers. I actually love the Grimm brothers because it really, really again, they didn't invent most of these stories, and you can separate which ones are the real ones and which ones are the ones that were actually true. So, I would definitely, if you're a book lover, I'm a book lover. I love to read books. There's something about, and I was having this discussion not too long ago because a lot of people were like, oh no, I really love to read my book on the tablet. And I'm old school where I love to bunny ear pages in books. Like, I just love bunny ears on my books. Not only that, it's always been my dream to have a big, huge library in my house. So one day, maybe soon, I'll hit the lotto. Maybe this year, you never know, 2026, it might be good. I might hit the lotto, become a billionaire, and $1 million is nothing these days. It's billions and billions we need. But let's talk about the most disturbing Grimm brothers tale out of all of the stories that they have come out with, which is called the juniper tree. This is probably also one of the most famous stories because it's so dark that people actually loved it so much. I'm actually surprised they haven't made a movie like this yet. They make so many different movies, and this is the one movie I have not seen, unless maybe I'll look for it. Maybe I'll Google it or something. Maybe they did and I missed it. I have no idea. But the juniper tree was about a stepmother who murders her stepson. She ends up beheading him and cooks him into a stew. I know. It gets a little darker than this. She serves the stool. She's Jesus. She serves the stew to the boy's father, who unknowingly eats his own child. The sister collects the bones and buries them under the juniper tree. The boy that was murdered and cooked in this stew actually turns back into a bird. He sings the truth over to his father and drops a millstone that kills his stepmother. So yeah, I know, crazy. So that is the juniper tree. And that is known as one of the biggest controversial Grimm's brother story out there today. And a lot of people know about it. A lot of people don't know about it. They don't like to speak about it. But I have read about it, and I thought it wasn't as bad. See, I think Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty were by far the worst. But I don't know. Also, killing your son and feeding it to your father is a little. I have issues and might need a meeting and need to talk to somebody psychologically. All right, guys, that wraps up for the Grimm's brother for today. Next week, we are going to go into, it's the anniversary. And if you guys do not know about this story, but the Andrea Yates story, she is the woman who had a mental breakdown. And I'm actually going to show a little bit of the trailer. Hopefully they don't cut my trailer out. Please let me know. But she is the woman who had a mental breakdown many, many years ago. She still to this day is in a psychiatric ward. And she drowned all 5 of her babies in a bathtub. This story, I remember watching it and listening to the documentary on this. And the one thing I have to say, and I'm not going to go too much into it in this episode because we're going to talk about it next week. But I have to say her husband, actually, after everything that she had did to those kids, and murdering all 5 of them, and they were all babies. He knew that she needed help, and he really fought for many, many years because she was on death row and she was about to get electrocuted and get the, that. And it ended up getting turned around and whatnot. Again, I don't want to go too much into it, but he really, even to this day, he is there for her, and he's remarried. He has another child, but he's always said, she had mental problems. She's always said this, and I did not listen. And unfortunately, he went to work one day and had to come home to such a huge tragedy like this, but always supported her and fought the system for many, many years to get it overturned so that way she can get psychiatric help. And that shows a lot about someone who has a lot of faith and really understands the power of prayer and being a good person. So we're going to talk about this next week. I'm hoping that the trailer will go into this episode. I love you guys as always. I hope you guys stay safe. Have a fantastic weekend and Happy New Year again. And I hope and pray that everybody's is successful this year, that you have all your blessings, anything that you've ever dreamed about, everything that you've wanted in life, it actually comes to light this year for you guys. All right. Love you guys. Have a great weekend. Bye.
She had this dilemma of, I love my children, and yet if I don't kill them, I am essentially sentencing them to this eternal damnation.
The tragic case of Andrea Yates still shocking to the world decades after her gruesome crime.
I mean, it just was such a shock, I think, to everybody to see this mom, who everybody really described as super mom, and, the loss of her 5 children, the fact that she drowned them.
After drowning